Well, Mayem, Al Jazeera.
Well, joining us live now from London is Ziya Meral. He's the Turkey analyst at the Foreign Policy Centre. Thanks very much for being with us. I mean, now that these hostages are safe, can we expect Turkey to become a more active partner in this coalition against ISIL?
Turkey is an active partner in this coalition against ISIL. It's just that it has put parameters against its military engagement. The answer to that is a clear no, simply because obviously the issue of the hostages was a major concern for Turkey because it could not risk their lives. But the other concerns still remain. For example, the question of whether or not the US strategy has any long-term plans for the troubles in Syria and Iraq, and addressing them. Without addressing them, there will not be any end to troubles like ISIS. Thirdly, the question of what the implications of this operation will be for Turkey in the short and long run. Turkey is getting ready, as we have seen last 2 days, to a large influx of refugees flying into to Turkey. So the complications of this military campaign is much more than just the hostages at this stage.
Yeah, as we've been seeing with these 45,000 people who've fled over the border into Turkey just in the past day, ISIL is right on the border, isn't it?
They clearly are. Today, the videos that we have seen emerging over the last 2 or 3 days, the gunshots are clearly heard, and the villages near the Turkish border are clearly fighting for their lives at the moment. That goes to show what a real threat ISIS is for Turkey as well. So it is a direct threat to Turkey's own territory, people on Turkish borders, and for Turkish citizens too.
Turkey has said that it's tightening its borders to try to stop the flow of fighters and weapons, but one wonders how difficult that is, but at the same time it's opening them to allow refugees in.
Indeed. I mean, Turkey faces an extremely complicated situation. Over the last 8-9 months, we have seen Turkey actively taking a strong position in stopping jihadists who are on their journeys to Syria, in arresting people on its borders and deporting people. Even the borders which we have seen over the last 2-3 days where the Kurdish refugees are entering Turkey have been closed, and the Turkish soldiers had to cut the wires and open the crossings into that. The reality of a 900 kilometers long border is a truly difficult thing, and there can never be a watertight moment where all of these possible passages and through various geographical locations are tightly controlled and stopped. So Turkey then finds itself in this difficulty of both having the obligation to host those refugees, but at the same time addressing a serious security threat to its own country first and its allies.
Yeah, but despite the challenges that Turkey is facing, do we expect to see more pressure from the US for it to get more involved? I'm thinking specifically about this air base that Turkey has, the US would like to launch airstrikes from. Do you ever see that opening, for example?
From a purely military operational sense, US does not need the air bases in Turkey. US has enough military capacities around Syria to undertake such air strikes. The reason why the US has been quite committed to get Turkey to publicly declare a war against ISIS has been its diplomatic presence and the importance of having regional and Muslim states supporting that campaign. Turkey has already committed security cooperation, intelligence sharing, and logistic hosting of any possible campaign towards ISIS. Turkish intelligence services already closely working with US and NATO allies and European allies to address the problem. I think Secretary Kerry and US officials have been quite vocal also, publicly acknowledging that Turkey has sensitivities, and US government appreciates that and will seek to work around them. And I think at this stage it would be rather naive to anticipate Turkey to start partaking in a public campaign against ISIL without a robust plan as to what will happen next, because the question of taking operations against ISIL targets is not the difficulty at all. The difficulty is what will happen to Syria next, what will happen to Iraq next, how will we cope with the humanitarian crisis, and how would we cope with the long-term prolonged security threat caused by a failed state called Syria and a prolonged civil war to Turkey and to regional countries. Until we converse about the conditions within which ISIS emerged in Syria and in Iraq as well, whatever we are doing now is a temporary adventure, and obviously Turkey stands to lose more than anybody in its region from such an adventure.
Okay, Ziya Meral, very interesting to speak to you. Thanks very much for joining us there from London. Well, in Iraq, thousands of supporters of the Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr have staged a demonstration in Baghdad. The crowd waved Iraqi flags and condemned what they described as U.S. interference in Iraq. Our correspondent John Hendren has this report from Baghdad.